HUDs and UIs in video games are way more important than I feel like most people seem to realize, and especially for Call of Duty Zombies, I think it makes a big difference on how the game actually feels and looks to the player. And if you don't know what a HUD or a UI is, the simple explanation is that a HUD is a heads-up display, which is of course all the little pieces of information you get on your screen while you're actually in gameplay or any given game. Every single game has a heads-up display. There's always, one available. Sometimes you can customize it, sometimes you can't, and sometimes it turns off for certain, gameplay sequences. Sometimes there's more things on the screen at once. There could be permanent things on the HUD, which means it's always there, but there could also be things that pop up temporarily and then go away shortly after. The UI is just really anything involving the user interface. That's what it stands for. That could be the menus, but it could also be the heads-up display. The heads-up display is kind of part of the UI. But in general, I think all of this is so important for games, especially Call of Duty Zombies, more than the average person thinks. And I'm of the opinion that the recent Call of Duty Zombies games, the past 4 Call of Duty Zombies games, have had the worst HUDs we've ever seen in Call of Duty Zombies. And as I said before, a lot of people might say that's really not a big deal. These HUDs don't have to be amazing for the game to actually work, but I disagree heavily. I do think when you have a bad HUD, it does take away from the atmosphere of the game, the story, the setting, and even some of the gameplay, because it just gets all in your face and you can't really enjoy the atmosphere nearly as much, and the personality is also lost when the HUD is really, really bad. And what has been one of the biggest complaints with zombies over the past few years, it's the fact that the zombies modes just haven't really been feeling like zombies. They've lost their personality, they lost their soul. And yes, I think a big part of that is because of the HUDs. So I'm going to go over a few general things that I think have been affecting these HUDs more than anything, and then we'll get into some more specifics. So these things I'm going to point out, some of them don't apply for all of these recent HUDs, only some of them. But of course, the recent games being Black Ops 4, Cold War Zombies, Modern Warfare 3 Zombies, and of course, Vanguard Zombies. So first things first, the HUDs being very intrusive to the screen. Now, this is one that, like I said, it affects some of these more than others, of course, but especially Cold War and Vanguard more than anything, it is insanely intrusive, this HUD. There is so much stuff on the screen while you're playing, and sometimes there's really not that much stuff on the screen when you're just, stand still, you're not shooting any zombies, you're just looking up at the sky or something. It doesn't usually look that terrible, but once you actually start shooting zombies, it is just all over the place, especially in those games. Black Ops 4 has kind of a different issue where shooting zombies doesn't really change the HUD all that much. There's not a lot of pop-ups on the screen, but the HUD itself is very intrusive, especially on the lower part of the HUD. And then when you go to Modern Warfare Zombies, I feel like this one's the least intrusive out of these recent ones, but I still think there is some issues with it and just the way it's laid out, and there's just not enough customization for really any of these HUDs to make them fit your play style. The next thing doesn't really apply to Black Ops 4. The only issue Black Ops 4 really has with its HUD is how intrusive it is. But this is just the fact that these don't really have that much of a zombies feel to them, especially, of course, Cold War, Vanguard, and Modern Warfare 3 Zombies. The HUDs do not scream zombies to me. In the past, HUDs have always felt unique to zombies. They never were the same HUDs that you would get in a multiplayer experience. Never. It would always be its own separate thing, and it always had a zombies feel to it, especially when you go back to Black Ops 2, where they even had unique HUDs depending on the map you were playing. Mob of the Dead, Buried, and Origins all had unique HUDs from one another. Stuff like that is so cool. Shadows of Evil did the same thing, where their HUD is a bit different than some of the other maps in Black Ops 3 Zombies. And then even when you get a little bit more specific with the user interfaces, specifically with the inventory screens that, Zombies, of course, has within most of its modes, if you click the back button on your controller, you get the inventory screen. And Infinite Warfare did something really cool where each map had a very unique user interface for each of those maps. That is what you should do. You should be having stuff like that. But then you go to Cold War Zombies and you press that back button to see the inventory screen. It is the most plain looking, boring looking UI I've ever seen in my entire life. And Vanguard Zombies doesn't even have an inventory UI. They just scrapped it, even though there's literally quest items that you need to collect on some of these maps, and they just don't appear anywhere in the UI inventory, even though they've started doing that in Black Ops 3, and it was a great system. Actually, even Black Ops 2 was doing it, so why not continue it? But they just said, screw it, let's not even bother, and I don't really get why. And don't even get me started on Modern Warfare 3 Zombies. The HUD here, the UI, it's literally just Warzone. Like, that's the biggest issue here. They just feel like they're stripped right from Warzone and multiplayer. We used to have things that felt unique, and I think this is really important because Zombies needs to feel more unique. It needs to feel like its own mode, not like it's just an extension of another mode in the game just with zombies thrown in. It needs to feel like its own thing. And even if it is technically its own thing, it needs to actually feel that way. And the HUD is one of the main things to do that. And lastly, this does apply to all of the recent HUDs, and I have kind of already talked about this a little bit, but the HUDs are just kind of ugly. They just don't look clean. They don't look that good to me. When you go back to Black Ops 3, Black Ops 2, even Infinite Warfare, even World War II, I just think they looked a lot better for the zombies modes. And obviously, if you go back to World War I and Black Ops 1, those are more simplistic zombies modes, so it's hard to compare. Obviously, there was less items in the game you had to put on the screen in the first place, but just those other zombies games just had much better looking HUDs. Black Ops 4's, although it looks unique to zombies, and I do like that, I'm not a big fan of how it actually looks, especially with the perk icons, just the perk icons always being there, and then if you get more than 4 perks, it just weirdly goes to the left side of the screen. It's just very unorganized HUD, but at least it has a zombies feel, so I'll at least give Black Ops 4 the benefit of the doubt there. But then you go to Cold War, Vanguard, especially Vanguard, that was probably the worst one, and then Modern Warfare 3 zombies, they just don't look that cool to me. They don't look interesting. Again, they don't have that zombies feel, and they're just kind of ugly. So I'm not a fan of that at all. So now let's start to get to actual specifics about these recent HUDs. Again, not all of these things appear in all of these recent HUDs, but a lot of these things do. So first of all, the minimap. The minimap we have seen since Cold War, and it has been in every single zombies iteration since then, including the round-based maps and open world stuff, literally everything. You have had that minimap in everything, and I don't see the point of it. It does not make any sense on a round-based survival map. That doesn't make sense whatsoever. In an open world mode like Outbreak or Modern Warfare Zombies, that's fine. I understand why you would have a minimap in those modes. Even then, I don't think they necessarily need to do it the same way they do it. But yeah, it understandably should be in those modes. In round-based survival maps, you're playing on relatively small maps that everything is kind of placed within a 1 minute distance of each other. There is no reason why we need a mini-map in this mode. It doesn't make any sense, and it just takes up room on the HUD, and it does not look good, and again takes away from that zombies feel because it's a mini-map. When have we ever had mini-maps in zombies? It does not have that zombies feel to it at all, and it actually takes away a lot of great elements about zombies, specifically the mystery and the exploration aspect of zombies, or even just the discovery, like just playing the map for the first time and looking around, finding things, finding perk machines, finding the new doors that you can buy, finding the pack-a-punch. Like, all these things are just part of the zombies experience, and especially in games like Cold War and Vanguard, where it's very easy to do those things. It is very easy to get around. I don't need a mini-map to make it even easier. It just doesn't make any sense, and there's not even an option to turn the mini-map off. At least some of these HUD elements we're going to be talking about today, you can turn off. The minimap you just can't, and I honestly don't even think that would be a solid compromise. I think a solid compromise would maybe be implementing a minimap into the game in another way, which, guess what? They've already done before. We've had plenty of zombies maps where the actual map of the map you're playing on is somewhere on the map, and you can go find it, take a look at it. Zombies in Spaceland, Blood of the Dead, like all these maps, they have these maps literally there for you to look at. You can study it, you can learn it, and then probably within like 5 or 6 games, you're gonna know that map pretty well. Like, it's really hard to play zombies a couple times and not really understand where everything on the map is. We don't need a mini map to make it even easier. Maybe if they want to put the mini map, when you press the back button, maybe have the mini map pop up there. Sure, I don't know. I wouldn't be 100% opposed to that. I would still think it's a little weird. Or maybe have it be, again, some sort of an in-game thing that's a little more interactable. Maybe like Minecraft, where you can, bring a map with you and kind of like carry it in your arm, and you can sometimes look at it, but you don't always look at it. Maybe to press a button on the D-pad to pull it out. So it at least makes it feel more, atmospheric. It makes it feel more part of the gameplay. And that's a big part of zombies to me. Like, multiplayer, it does not matter. Like, we can have a mini-map in multiplayer just fine. It does not take away anything from the mode to me, because that is a 6v6 competitive arcade shooter. That's all multiplayer is to me. Immersion, atmosphere, none of that really matters. So I don't care. I can take a mini-map. It's fine. Campaign and zombies are the 2 modes where atmosphere matters. And guess what? Aside from the terrible open combat missions in Modern Warfare 3's campaign, there's never been mini-maps in campaign, because that wouldn't make any sense. Imagine throwing a mini-map in there to show you around. Like, why would you do that? Part of it is the atmospheric feeling of the mode, where you're just going around as a soldier. That's what zombies should be too. I want to walk around a zombies map for the first time and really feel like I'm there and just take in the atmosphere. And a mini-map kind of takes that away a bit. The next element is the XP or point pop-ups on the screen, and this is something that started with Cold War and has continued in Vanguard and Modern Warfare 3 Zombies. Now, I think it's the least bad in the Modern Warfare 3 Zombies mode because they made it so the XP pop-ups will only be one at a time, so you're not going to have, you know, a laundry list of XP pop-ups like you can in Cold War and Vanguard. It's especially terrible in Cold War. Like, it was one of my least favorite things about the mode because you'd be killing a horde of zombies and just see like a bunch of numbers popping up on your screen all at once. It's too much, man. It takes away from the experience so damn much. I'm trying to just, again, take in the atmosphere, but it's so hard to do that when you're just seeing thousands of numbers and letters popping up on your screen. That's not what zombies should be at all. Same thing with medal pop-ups. Do I really need to see medals in zombies? I don't care. I don't care if I got a double kill or a fury kill or some headshot. Like, I don't need these things to pop up on the screen as extra dopamine hits. The mode itself should be a dopamine hit from the start. I do not need to see a bunch of shit popping up on the screen. The only pop-ups that make sense is like a notification letting you know that you completed a camo challenge, for example. Those make sense because you're not going to be frequently getting those anyways. So it's just every now and then you'll get that and it'll let you know, okay, you completed this camo. That's cool. Or maybe when you level up or something, it'll give you that notification too. That's fine. I'm completely fine with those. But for every single kill you get, having some sort of a medal pop-up in the XP, no, get that shit out of here, or at least give us the option to turn it off. There's also health bars and the damage point numbers. Now, these are something, again, that was introduced in Cold War and has continued going forward. Now, the thing about these is that there is an option to turn them off, so this isn't the worst thing in the world just because you can turn them off in Cold War. You can't turn them off in Vanguard. I haven't checked about Modern Warfare 3 Zombies, but you can't do it in Vanguard. At least I've checked the menus, I just couldn't find it for the life of me. So it's only an option in Cold War, and of course, I like that it's an option that makes it at least a little bit less annoying, but honestly, by default, it should just be turned off regardless. I don't think we need that information, and I do think there's a much better way to give that information to the player. So for example, for the health bars, there's ways to, and I know it would take a lot more dev time, but you can make it so the zombies actually deteriorate more as you're shooting them, and that's how you can tell they're about to die. The more bloody they are, the more torn up they look. That should be how it is. Look at George from Black Ops 1. George had this really cool thing where, of course, he didn't have a health bar, so you had no idea how close you were to killing him exactly, but you had a general idea because his appearance would change the more you shoot him. He would get bloodier, his lamppost thing that he had that he would smack you with would get more destroyed. It's like it genuinely was making him change his look just based on how much damage you're doing. And a lot of boss zombies in Call of Duty Zombies have been like that before, and that's how they should be. I don't need health bars for everything. Now, some things, sure, I don't really mind having health bars on maybe like big bosses, obviously like the main boss fights, sure, I'm fine with that as well. But for stuff like just regular zombies, we do not need health bars. I'm like not that against having them, again, because you can turn them off at least in Cold War, but at least give us a better way to show that instead of just being some more shit on the screen that just, you know, takes away from, again, the immersive atmospheric experience, and instead make it actually something a little more interesting. Like, for example, campaign. What if they started putting health bars on campaign characters, like the AI soldiers? Would you like that? No, everyone would say unanimously that is stupid. We don't want health bars in our campaign mode. So why should we have it in zombies? And I know that's, you know, they're somewhat different modes, but they have the same idea where they're supposed to be somewhat immersive experiences with the atmosphere. Again, multiplayer, that doesn't matter. You can throw health bars in multiplayer. I'm not going to mind that whatsoever. I actually like health bars in multiplayer because that is a very different type of a mode. It's more of a competitive arena shooter. That's not really what zombies is. And the damage point numbers look horrendous. That's one of my least favorite things about Vanguard because you can't even turn them off. At least in Cold War, I always turn them off. They're so ugly. Like, I don't want to see a bunch of numbers pop up already on top of the other numbers popping up on the screen. There's just too many numbers. It's just too much. And as for the XP/point pop-ups on the screen, we already had that in the past. It was just on the, you know, bottom left-hand side of the screen. It would just appear next to your points, and that was satisfying enough. I don't need it front and center on the screen for it to be satisfying. If it's perfectly fine being, you know, a smaller number on the left side of the screen near the actual points itself, so you can see your points going up in real time. That's a lot better, a lot more clear to the player, and I think doesn't take away from the immersive experience that zombies should be. Now, the next thing's very simple. It's just a compass. Why is the compass even there? We don't need a compass in zombies. There's not a single person who needs a compass. This is something you can turn off in all of the games, thankfully. So I always turn it off. I've literally never kept it on. I might keep it on just for like the gameplay if I want to get some gameplay of it, just to show you guys how stupid it is. But I usually turn it off. It's ugly. There's no need for it at all, especially when you have the mini map. Like, what am I ever gonna need it? You actually also have, at least in Modern Warfare 3 Zombies, you can literally call things out specifically with your waypoints. So like, I don't need the freaking compass. It's so useless. I don't know. It's pretty useless in multiplayer as well. I don't even use it in Warzone. I literally use it in not a single mode. So like, why do I need it in Zombies? It just doesn't make any sense. It's just more stuff on the screen. It's ugly. Get it out of here. And next thing I want to talk about is not really a specific element exactly, but it's just in general, anything covering your gun is not a good idea in my opinion. So I don't like having the perk icons in the middle of the screen because of that. Anything that's like covering your gun and even if it's just a little bit of space there, I just don't like that, especially in Black Ops 4. I think this affects it more than anything. Like, for example, using the gauntlets on Ancient Evil, there's literally icons that are over the gauntlet, and I want to be able to appreciate the gauntlet in all of its glory. It's a gorgeous wonder weapon, but if you have this like icon just constantly over it at all times, I do think it takes away from how it feels. I'm personally not a fan. I wish it wasn't there. I wish they moved things around so you can just fully appreciate your guns. Perk icons should be on the left side of the screen like they've always been back in the past. Why did they have to start changing that? I have no idea. I didn't really mind it that much when they first did it in Infinite Warfare, but then we've just kept getting it again and again and again. I'm kind of like sick of it. Like, I don't need the perks there. Put them on the left side of the screen like they used to be, or at least let us have the option to do that or something. I also hate when there's permanent stuff in all four corners of the screen. I think it's important in Zombies to at least save like one or two of those corners to have nothing like at all. Maybe you can have something that's like temporary that pops up there. Like, for example, if you get a power up and you want the power up icon to appear there, sure, whatever. But in general, there should be at least one corner, especially for content creators, because like, I can only say this as a content creator. I'm sure most people don't give a living shit, but it is nice to have that one corner that you can always put your webcam in and not worry about it covering something. You can just put it there. You know nothing's ever going to go there. Like, I love games that do that and acknowledge that, and they know that people love to make videos and love to put their webcam somewhere. So please give me one corner at least that just has nothing, or at least let us customize that. Again, why not give us customizable HUDs? And lastly, I'm so sick of the ugly in-game menus, especially in Cold War, Vanguard, and Modern Warfare 3 Zombies. It just doesn't look good. I don't think in-game menus should even be a thing, really. Like, in the past, we never really had that. That's only been kind of a recent Zombies thing. And what I mean by in-game menus, I mean when you click on something, for example, the Pack-a-Punch in Cold War, and it brings up this little menu where you have to now select, you know, you want a tier 1 Pack-a-Punch, or you want tier 2, or you can press RB to then look at the ammo mods, for example. Or let's look at the armor station. You know, it's a menu. You have to click on it and then it gives you another menu to go through. Or, you know, the armor stations in Modern Warfare 3 Zombies, or, you know the Wonder Fizz machine that you have to actually select the perks. Like, all these are actual in-game menus. I don't like them. They not only do they look kind of ugly, but also they just don't really belong in Zombies. And I think there's much better ways to implement all of this stuff just naturally in the game. And actually, fellow YouTuber Donuts made a video about this quite a while ago where he discussed some ideas for it. He had a great idea with simply just putting the actual items on the map itself, just like you have wall buys on the map itself. So for ammo mods, for example, why should ammo mods be in a menu through Pack-a-Punch? Why not just have ammo mods be a physical feature on the map that you go up to it and then you hold X to actually use it, or maybe purchase it, or whatever it may be, whatever kind of currency the game wants you to use to get it, or maybe have it be something you just simply craft. Like, look at the score streaks in Black Ops Cold War. How much more interesting would it be if the sentry turret is something you had to craft, just like we had in the past with buildables, rather than being something you had to purchase for, you know, with salvage through a menu? Like, it's just a boring way to do it. Why not make it more interesting? And menus, they don't belong in Zombies. It's just, again, makes the user interface less approachable, less interesting, and again, less unique. And you might be wondering, why do the developers do this? Like, what is their purpose for all of these things I've just mentioned? And I have some reasons, and I know why they're doing it. The first big one is to try to tie the game more into the multiplayer and Warzone communities. And I don't really understand what this thought process is from the developers. I think they just have some strange idea that making the UI and the HUD more like these other games that are popular, somehow that's going to make them want to play it more. I don't think that's what people's thought processes are. There's a lot of other things that connect it to multiplayer in Warzone that might get people to play it, like, for example, the story connections, or, you know, the camo grinding, or the weapon levels progressing, and all that stuff that kind of connects to those modes. That might get those players to play zombies, but I don't think they're going to see zombies and be like, okay, there's a mini-map. I know what a mini-map is, so we're good to go. That's not really how people think. People used to love and play zombies a shit ton back in the day in Black Ops 1 Zombies. Black Ops 1 Zombies looks nothing like the multiplayer. It doesn't. The HUD does not look the same at all. It has its own unique HUD. Same thing with Black Ops 2 Zombies, even with World at War Zombies. They all felt unique to themselves. We didn't have to have all this multiplayer stuff to make it somehow bring those communities over. And I do think a big reason why a lot of those communities have came over to zombies nowadays is not because of the HUD. It's not. It's because of what I just mentioned. The weapon levels progressing, the battle pass progression, the camo grinding, all these things that they can use in multiplayer and Warzone, they now can, you know, level up and utilize in Warzone. So that's one of the reasons they like to now play zombies. It's not because of the HUD. If anything, I think the HUD probably just tires them out. They probably get sick of it. They get sick of seeing the same damn HUD all the damn day. They want something unique. And especially zombies fans, they want something unique more than anyone. They want to play zombies and feel like, wow, this is a very unique experience, unlike anything we've ever seen. We don't want to play it and go, you know, it's zombies, of course, but, you know, there's too much Warzone influence here. There's too much multiplayer influence here. And the HUD has a big part in that. I also think a big reason for these, you know, recent HUDs is just to try to make it more casual friendly in terms of stuff like the minimap. And I gotta say, I don't even get that entirely, because you can make it certainly casual friendly in some places without completely just, you know, destroying the entire game for everyone. Why have all these casual friendly things in every single mode for every single person? Why not make a casual mode specifically for casuals, and they can play with their minimap, they can play with all that stuff, but maybe make like an actual core mode that's for everyone else where they don't have all that stuff. There's already pretty easy ways to get around on these maps. They literally have icons on doors in Vanguard, and I think they had that in Cold War. Like, we don't need icons on doors. Back in the past, they always had in-game ways of showing the player where things are. Doors, for example, they glowed. They had this big shine to them. They looked like something you could open. That's how players knew to go to that door. Or they utilized the lighting on the map properly to showcase where the perk machines are. Or the perks jingled, they shine, they had color. Of course you were going to find them. And they still somewhat do that even in Cold War and beyond. So why do we need all these little icons everywhere to help casuals out? They're not that stupid. We're treating casuals like the dumbest people on planet Earth. They're not that dumb. They can figure it out. Yes, of course, if it gets a little too complex, maybe they won't be able to figure it out. But in general, they can figure most stuff out. If they figured it out in the past, they will figure it out now. And lastly, I think a big part of it is also for the dopamine rush. And that has to do with like the XP pop-ups and the medal pop-ups. And to that I say, like, come on, you can make a dopamine rush feeling game without all of that crap. Like, it's just... you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the TikTok stuff that's been going on the past few years, where like a lot of people need to have like some gameplay of Subway Surfers below a clip of a movie that's on TikTok, because they assume that most people do not have the attention spans good enough to actually just watch that clip, and instead they need Subway Surfers below it. Now, you might be right in saying that, like that might actually be psychologically true, where yes, maybe some people actually need that, or else they're just not going to be able to focus on the game. Sure, you can say that. But does that mean every single piece of art out there should be like that? Should we start putting Subway Surfers below movies in theaters to try to get people to watch the movies more often? Like, no, that's ridiculous. Like, Call of Duty should not turn into a TikTok trend. Like, I don't want that shit. We don't do this stuff just for the sole purpose of a dopamine rush. You should be able to create that dopamine feeling just within the gameplay. And zombies did that in the past. Shooting zombies in Black Ops 3 was very satisfying. I didn't need all this other crap. I didn't need hit markers. Actually, we didn't even talk about hit markers. I don't really mind hit markers, to be honest. They started doing that in Advanced Warfare, and they did Infinite Warfare and beyond. I don't really mind them that much, although I do like that you can turn them off in some of the games, but it's not really a big problem. But regardless, back on topic, I don't need all this crap. You can give us dopamine rushes with just the gameplay itself and the rewards given to us through gameplay. That is what the dopamine should be, not XP pop-ups on the screen. All in all, I think this is going to be one of the biggest things for COD 2024 when it rolls around. I really think the devs need to learn from their mistakes, and I'm really worried they don't realize that the HUDs are making a negative impact on these recent zombie modes. And I guess we'll have to wait and see when this next game comes out, because if it ends up being another multiplayer type HUD with a minimap with all these XP pop-ups, it's gonna rub me the wrong way, and probably a lot of other players as well, because I do remember a lot of people's first reactions to these recent zombies games being quite negative, and I do think the HUD is a big part of that. I remember seeing the Black Ops 4 gameplay for the first time. It was leaked a little bit early, and I saw it, and I was so disappointed. And the same thing happened with Cold War Zombies gameplay. I was so disappointed, and I think the HUD was a big part of that. Even though I didn't fully realize the HUD was the reason, I think nowadays I can tell it was because of the HUD. It was just because it didn't look like you can really appreciate the atmosphere and the personality of the game as much because of what was going on with the HUD. So that is just my opinion. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section down below. I really, really hope, again, the devs can learn from this. Maybe they will. Who knows? Peace out, everyone.